What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Did you catch the webinar tonight? Hopefully you did. If you are investing in Mogul or you're thinking about investing in Mogul, oh, see, I've got their swag on here, my hat. Probably going to wear this whenever I do the Mogul videos if I remember. I bet I do it less than 50% of the time, but we'll see. Anyway, if you're thinking about investing in anything on their platform, you should definitely watch their monthly webinar. They almost always either drop a property on there, talk about a new feature. They're very useful. And they also will answer any questions at all that you have about their platform. They're usually pretty good about I mean, you can just tell they really know their business when you ask them stuff too, so it's good. Uh, they are kind of on the silly side of younger dudes, so I think I know a couple of people have made some comments about that, but I think like whenever they're talking about their business, they're just locked in. Which is, speaking of, they're this one is the Swift. It has something to do with I think it's a singer. I think is she a singer or an actress? Um, T Swift, something like that. Anyway, uh, I didn't get the reference. I don't understand what it had to do with this particular property, why they would name it that. There's something happened today. I don't know. Anyway, feel free to put that in the comments. I probably, will read it and forget it again anyway. If you haven't figured this out yet, I'm not up on pop culture at all. So anyway, this name eluded me even more than most of the ones do, but it's another really solid looking deal from Mogul, right? I've come to just really expect this from them, and it's another one that everything I dug into so far hasn't really disappointed. I'm going to go through the full due diligence just like I always do. I pull up my AirDNA data, which is my favorite thing to do because this is, oh, by the way, it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, short term rental in Glendale, Arizona. And so we haven't had one specifically in Glendale. So I'm going to just, I pulled up a little bit of info about Glendale first. I had heard of it. It's about 250,000 population. Obviously, they've had good population growth. It looked like it stalled a little bit in the 2000 to 2010 timeline, but then really took off, another 10%. So that, I was pretty happy with that. This is in that same general market as the Mesa, Arizona properties that we've looked at. And so, it's the MSA, I think is it's Phoenix. Oh, they say Phoenix metropolitan area, but yeah, it's the Phoenix Mesa Chandler is I think what the actual MSA is, or is this the bigger one? No, that's what this MSA is. That's what it's called. And so you can see Mesa's over here, Glendale's up here. So, a different part of the market, but overall, I think like if you're looking up I didn't pull up the risk, what are those called? The natural disaster risk thing from FEMA. I didn't pull that up on here because it's going to be the same general issues, I believe. This again, I think we probably looked at the population growth in this market when we looked at the Mesa ones, and yeah, I mean it's had phenomenal growth. You can see it's slowing down a little bit. That always happens as areas get to a certain size. Like it's really hard to do another 10% on top of 4.8 million or something like that, But even, between 2020 and 2022, they did another 3.5. I mean, so, it's a market that's definitely growing. I like that a lot. I don't think that has a big impact on the short-term rental business. But for the exit strategy, if you're selling the home as a home, it's certainly going to have an impact on the value there. So let's see. That's about it. You know, I didn't dig too much into the market. Obviously, if you're going to put a bunch of money into this one, you might want to know more about it, right? But I think that we talked about it a little bit in other videos as well. So that's really all I wanted to do there. One thing I wanted to point out, they've already sold $32,803. Uh, it started at $0 when they had the link on the webinar. Like this just like And I think before the end of the webinar, $24,000. People had invested that much. I don't know if some people had the link ahead of time, or if people are just like, okay, I'm just going to buy every single thing that they put out, which I think is a okay strategy with them. Like, their deals, I think on average are so strong that I don't hate the idea of just, okay, I'm just going to buy a piece of everything they do. But for me personally, I mean, what I'm doing, I'm still doing due diligence on every single one, and I am, I'm going to always, there's always even though their average deal is great in my opinion, there still have some that are below their average, right? And those are the ones I'm trying to kick out. One of the things, if you did catch the webinar when Joey mentioned what his average performance was this month, and I was my portfolio is slightly above his percentage wise, so that's kind of exciting. 1 month doesn't really mean anything. I just thought it was funny when he mentioned it. I was looking at mine. I was like, ooh, I'm slightly higher than that. But, their properties on average are doing fantastic, which reminds me, please like and subscribe. In the description of this video, I do have a referral link to Mogul and to the club that I'm on at Mogul, which does give you a little bit of extra money when you invest and you invite somebody else. I also have links to all the other places where I invest in fractional real estate online. I want you to do your own due diligence on all the platforms and any of the properties, right? Just because, like, if you've been watching my videos a while, Mogul has become, one of my favorite platforms, and it's beating most of the others by a lot. It doesn't mean I'm right. You still should do your own due diligence, make sure it fits your risk profile. At the moment, there's no real liquidity option, right? If you wanted to get out of these, you don't really have an option to. So you have to think about that. And, they have talked about having a secondary market, but that's not up and running yet. Um, and, you want to just also dig into every deal, just like I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to share the way I look at these deals as someone who's invested in properties like this for 20 years now. But it doesn't mean, just because I'm going to invest in one or I don't invest in another, that's the right answer for you. I did want to point out they've been selling out really fast, right? Right now, they only have these two available. You can see I got a piece of this one. This is one I chose not to invest in. So were these other two that sold out real quick. Um, but, on average, I'm buying, I think, basically two out of every three that they put up, I buy a little piece of. But yeah, it's been amazing to see how quickly they sell out of some of these deals. And so I think, yes, you definitely want to do some due diligence. And I don't get caught up in this, oh, this is going to sell out in 2 days, just like the last one, because some of them have been selling out in 2 days. But if you miss one, it's not as if that's the one that's going to go to the moon, right? Like the thing we're trying to avoid is the downside. There's never a situation where if you miss one of their deals, it's going to kill your whole portfolio. I know I've mentioned that a few times, but I think it's important because people definitely get excited, especially when they drop these on the webinar. If you look at this property, it's a really nice looking short-term rental, right? They have a lot of these little murals painted. They have it's nice decor. When you get to the backyard, there's a good looking pool. Again, and, another one of these murals. These work really well. Oh, and the little chess set. These work really well because they get people taking pictures in front of them. A lot of people, one of the things that are important for running your short-term rentals is when you can get some rebookings and referral bookings and stuff like that, right? The more traffic you get that's not coming directly from, that you're not paying Airbnb or VRBO or those sites, the more direct bookings or rebookings that you could do, the better. And so whenever people are posting their Airbnb on social media, it gives you the opportunity to maybe capture some of that business. But I feel like they've done a lot of the right things, right? They've got the game room, they've got the pool, I mean, so this is very much like what I think my most savvy clients are doing here in town, where they're going just very much all out on the amenities, right? We don't basically always want a pool. I love the little chess sets, a little place to putt around, and then all this stuff I think is they're making a ton of the right decisions. As far as the physical aspects of the property, the only thing that it really worries me is it is just a 3-2, right? And they're trying to accommodate 12 guests. When we get to the Airbnb listing, I'll explain where they're sleeping 12 people in three beds. I think That was the only real hesitation that I have on this one. Well, let's see. I say that. I've got a whole bunch of tabs open, so I'm going to make sure that's true. If you think about one of the things that Mogul is always doing is looking at, okay, they're always making projections that are based on actuals, right? This has been operating, and they say two years of verified operating actuals, and then it's been operating for 3 years. So I think they probably just didn't have all the numbers for the third year. I don't know, but they are projecting revenue that's actually below what it's done over the last year. I confirmed that looking at AirDNA numbers. I think that, it's one of the things I never worry about them messing with their yields, right? Their average yield. I do hate this, right? That they do average yield instead of year one yield. But you can always see what your year one yield is going to be. Um, let's see I always scroll way down to here. Someone pointed out that you can see it. But yeah, you have your uh, levered levered cash on cash year one. Okay, 8.88%. Oh, it's right here as well. This one's actually a little bit lower than a lot of the other properties that Moguls put out. But it's still, that's a very strong year one cash on cash yield. And I think they do this more with their Airbnbs than they do, but I feel like they always sort of sandbag it a little bit. They go a little bit lower, they're going lower than last year, and I think it's for good reason, right? I think if we are heading into a recession, which a lot of people think we are, we might see a little bit of a decline in Airbnb revenue. Most places have already seen a decline this year from last year. Not everywhere has. And so, I think it makes a little bit of sense to be conservative there. At the same time, we've talked about this probably quite a few times, but when you compare, they have mostly short-term rentals and pad splits on their platform. Most of the time, they're expecting the short-term rental properties to appreciate faster than the pad split properties. So they all end up looking like similar deals. Um, but a lot of, it's based on one is going to have a little bit more appreciation, one's going to have a little bit better yield. I think the pad splits, I'd expect them to be more stable. I have been picking up some of both, even though I do prefer the pad split model because I worry a little bit about the long term or the near term, right? Like I think short term rentals, your average over a long period of time, I expect to continue to do well. Now, who knows? That's just my expectation. It doesn't mean that's what it's going to be like. Um, but it is, I think you're going to have more fluctuation, right? You can have some great years and some not so great years. One of the things let's see, they are assuming a refinance. I always like to shut it off and see what the deal looks like. And so, okay, 13.8, 13.8 for both. That's really interesting. I almost find it, and I've mentioned this a few times, I almost find it silly to model the refinance. I mean, I think it's pretty realistic that they're going to get to refinance at some point, but you don't really need it to make that deal work. Why am I missing this? Just scrolling past it too fast, I guess. There we go. Turn it back on just so it stays. And so, yes, they take a little cash out at that point in time. It's also probably why we expect slightly better yields in the future years. But overall, it looks very much like the deals that we expect from them, although it is, as I mentioned, the year one yield is a little bit lower than a lot of the other product that they're putting out. Um, all right, let's see. What else did I want to talk about this one? Oh, I think, so this is one of the most of the ones that I've decided to not buy on their platform. I've had a problem with the purchase price. I've thought it's, they're paying up a little bit too much. I didn't have that at all. And they do always have an appraisal contingency. Um, and so, everything that they buy has appraised. I just don't necessarily always trust appraisals. They're just, one person's opinion on at one point in time. Obviously, it's a trained person, and that's their business to do that. But I like to also confirm it, right? And so, uh, favorite thing to do. Okay, let's just check all the different third-party websites. So the Zestimate says it's worth a little bit more than the 515,000 that Mogul's paying for it. So does, yeah, what are we on? Realtor thinks it's 335,000. So again, higher higher than what they're paying. So both of those, that's fantastic. We don't see that often. And then somehow though, Redfin thinks it's actually significantly less. So I don't know what's going on here, why it's so much different than the other two. And this even says like, oh, well, it's sold in 2022 for 505, and so maybe, oh, you know what? Did I even do the Zillow price trend here? I might not have. Let's grab this and let's look that up while we're here, right? So maybe they've trended down since then. Let's see. And that's why. Okay, yes. So look at that. Their 1 year has been down 4.7. So it's saying, well, they bought it for a certain amount back then. It's worth less now. So okay, that makes some sense why they're doing it, right? Because like 2022 is the peak. And actually, this is a little bit further down than a lot. We see this same shape quite a bit, but this is further down than we've seen. So okay, I get what Redfin's doing here, right? They're saying, well, it sold for 505 and it's gone down since then. But like if we look at this listing, they've clearly put some work into it. You're also getting all the furnishing and decor. Um, I don't know if it was really for 457, I'd be a little worried, but especially where the other two have a significantly different number. And you have a decent yield. I'm very happy with that. Like this is not one that I've definitely had ones that I've been worried about. I think that they're just paying up too much. It doesn't seem to be the case to me here. If I were going to put a bunch of money into this one, I'd probably spend some time, as you've seen me do before on Homes.com, where you can actually pull specific comps. I mean, I think you can do it on the rest of these. I just like the user interface that Homes.com has to do that. But I was pretty happy when I looked at these. I'm just going to close some tabs because you guys know my computer always seems to have some problems. So let's see. Okay. Um, as usual, I checked the flood map. So this whole area, and I think we ran into this, I'm pretty sure we did on the other one, it's all in this shaded X zone, which is this like between the 100-year floodplain and 500-year floodplain. It's the entire market, as far as I could tell. So it is. I think if you want to invest in that market, you just kind of have to be okay with it. Like, I mean, I spent a lot of time just sort of moving around. And I say it's the entire market. There's some places that it's going to be worse, but there's just huge portions of this city where, that's just what you're getting. And so, obviously, it's something that you have to be aware of and just decide, like, okay, does that work for you? If you've watched a few of my other videos, you can tell I'm really just unsure about this shaded X zone, right? Because none of the markets that, sorry, just froze real quick there. Yeah, I was just saying none of the markets that I've invested in hold properties personally have had this shaded X. I've always been just in pure X zones. So, I'm just not sure how I feel about it. I think that one of the things why I have decided to invest in some of these deals, like I think the Hugo was in one, I think maybe the Gilmore, but a couple others were in this shaded X. And I think that one, I know that Mogul is pretty savvy about the way that they're approaching insurance. Whenever I've asked them questions about that, I think that they are really making sure they're covered. Obviously, that's something you want to ask them those questions and figure out for yourself if it's something you're concerned with. But in addition to that, I think that when I have to deal with the insurance company if there's a problem, it's a hassle and I don't want to do it. When I'm buying a piece of fractional real estate and somebody else has to deal with it, it's not nearly as big of a deal. So does that mean I'm just going to like go in an AE zone or just anywhere? No, but it does make me think I'm a little bit more comfortable taking on some of these types of risks, especially also because I'm getting, smaller pieces. But yeah, obviously, if you're in this city, I mean, it looks like just about everywhere in the city is in this shaded X zone, and it is. It's the 100-year to 500-year plane, I believe. So it's not some gigantic risk either. Looked at the spot crime map. This is about a week of data. I think it's actually 8 days, so it wasn't too bad. I mean, there were quite a few burglaries. Obviously, we're always only getting a small amount of data, but how much shows up in that amount of time is what I'm kind of using to gauge. If you look at it, it picked a really big area too. Now, one of the things that I don't know that I've really mentioned this that much, but I sort of just use this as like a way to eyeball, like, okay, how much crime happened in the last week? And so like it's really easy to rule some properties out with that. But if it's something that it's like, it's close, it makes me want to like actually look into it otherwise. This is a property we know we've has been operating for 3 years the way it is now. I looked at their reviews and they're really good. This is a pretty broad map, and in the neighborhood, you don't really see stuff. So at least in this period of time, so I'm comfortable with this. But that is one of the things. Like sometimes I've just ruled it out completely, but sometimes when I'm doing my own due diligence and I use this and it looks, questionable, it just leads me to go and do more research, right? And so that's something. I don't know that I think I always just look at this map, and I've never really shared that as far as I can tell. When you look, I always do this walking down the street with the Google Street View, and it looked like a nice street. Like, I mean, I didn't notice anything. I'm always looking for like graffiti, abandoned vehicles, anything that would make me worry that it is a higher crime area, or just, that the homes aren't kept up well. This is, I think, the extent of like deferred maintenance that you see. Is like, okay, that driveway could be repainted or resealed or whatever they're doing with that. You can see they're using, they call this xeriscaping, or at least they used to. I don't know that I've heard that in a while. But basically, I also hear people just call it hardscaping, but it's not actually, because it's not hard, right? It's something else. But anyway, um, so it's a very different look than I'm used to, but they do, it looks like a very well maintained neighborhood, so I was glad to see that. Let's see. I did find the booking.com website, so it's good to see like how this has looked. Um, Obviously, I think the pictures just present really well. Whenever you do these sort of different little murals, and they have a couple in this home, you only see a couple in these pictures, but the one on the fence, that's really like a huge part of doing well as a short-term rental. Obviously, your home has to be clean and functional and a size that works for people, but having just these great pictures that make it attractive is just so important. And they've done a lot to this home to make it. Oh, it's just a little three-bedroom, two-bath home, 1,400 square feet. Other than the fact that it has a nice pool and all these added amenities, there's nothing very special about it, but adding all the little pops of color just make it so that it stands out a lot. And we found it works really well in our market, and I'm sure it does there as well. Um, Same thing, actually. Ike had shared this. He found I don't know, he found the Airbnb listing right away while we were still, I think when we were still on the webinar. So, um, you know, they have fantastic overall reviews. Now, obviously, it's going to be a new manager, right? But it's good to know that they don't have a bunch of complaints about the property itself. Um, as I mentioned, it is. Oh, well, let's see. Is this where? Yeah, it is. They say it sleeps 12. It's a three-bedroom, two-bath. There's 7 beds, but it's okay. One bedroom has a king bed. One has a queen. One has a bunk bed that has a queen underneath and a twin on top, and then they have two sofa beds and a rollaway bed. So, when they list it out there, this is not, I don't expect them to have groups of 12 here very often, um, especially the size of the home, like 1,400 square feet. I think it's probably, I mean, it's got to be really cramped in like the living room or the kitchen during those periods of time. They do have this big game room in the garage, but I don't know how, temperature wise, how that works out. And then I click on it and it goes away. But yeah, you can see by the pictures, like it is, um, it, I just really, I think they did a lot of the right things, right? I mean, all the stuff that you want to see. And so, yeah, they have this, it's probably why they did this garage as this additional hangout space. And it does look like this is air conditioned space too, right? You've got a vent here. Not 100% sure on that, but it seems like for it to be usable at all, it would have to be. um, because it's just hot there, right? But oh, is that separate from the garage? Do they have a separate garage? Maybe I don't know. That's interesting. I hadn't noticed that before, that they had that room. They have this room, but with the garage door, but then they also have like the regular garage. When we looked at the front of it, there's a two-car garage there. Maybe it's the other building that's over in the back. I'm actually not exactly sure how that's set up. Let's see. I didn't notice that initially. I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal one way or another. I'm going to just take a look real quick, see if I can figure it out. But other than that, then we're just going to look at the Air DNA numbers. And I think that's one of the most important things, right? Getting some third party confirmation on, yep, now you know my home address. That's fantastic. Oh, close that. If you guys want to mail me stuff, feel free. Please don't stop by. There's not a lot of room on my couch. Kind of a hefty dude. All right, let's see. Um, yeah, I wonder if it's this, right? Because you see the garage that's up here is the garage door. So, and this does have an AC on it. So I think it's probably this room here. Wonder if we can see from pictures in the backyard too, to kind of. This is one of the things that I find this fun when I'm looking at real estate deals, like really trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And they do, they show this door and then, okay, we've got this same color door here. So I do think it's this little building in the back there. Okay, so that's cool. So it's not just like the garage in the front of the house. It's actually this, I believe. I mean, this is I'm just you can make your own guess as well. But it looks like it's this building here is where that like game room is. So which is good because I don't believe that's included in this square footage of this home, and also too because of that, when you have this is like added. It might not be considered livable square footage. Oh, that's something maybe I should have looked up and I didn't in the county, right? So that'd be one other thing we could look up. I'm not going to make this video any longer and do that, but that's something. And it's not like you're sleeping people in there, right? They don't have beds or anything. So it is. I'm not super concerned of what it is, but this is some added value plus the pool that maybe the third-party sites that are valuing it are missing. Although now they seem to be getting better about picking up pools, but an extra little building like this, maybe not so much. Okay. Anyway, yeah, that's the Airbnb listing. Then the only other thing, I wanted to look up on AirDNA. I do pay for this, so I might as well actually get some value out of it. When I put in 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 12 guests, it projects $90,000 in top line revenue. If you remember in our listing, what are we actually projecting? 70,800. I think 90 is pretty high, and I think it's because it's pulling in 12 guests, and it doesn't necessarily know how this home is accommodating those 12 guests, right? But when we look at the actual comps, this home comes up as one of the comps, and it did 73,400 as a trailing 12 number top line revenue. And now AirDNA is typically only picking up Airbnb and VRBO. I don't think it's picking up anything else in addition to that. But so, it's good to be able to confirm, okay, third party confirmation that its top line revenue was better than what they're projecting for year one. I always love that they do that. Uh, and then you can see these other two comps that are like, one is 109 top line revenue, and this is 3 bedroom, 2 bath, only accommodating 6 people. I don't really think this makes too much of a difference, right? Because I don't believe a lot of 12 people groups are staying in this home once they read like unless they're just not paying attention to the beds and baths. And again, this one is 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 6 guests, 162,000 in revenue. Let's take a look at that because that looks um, that's a ton of money to make there. What are they doing different? Okay, they've got some pretty nice pictures. Um, I think you could probably argue like that a little bit more opulence here. They're going for a different vibe, right? Not necessarily just fun, like colorful, but like I don't know what you would call this. This is basically they're trying to make a home that I would be really uncomfortable to stay in, right? That's their goal. And typically places where I'm uncomfortable tend to be more expensive. Nice restaurants, country clubs, anywhere that's like, where you feel real opulence. Even when I used to work in like nice office buildings, I hated it. Like I didn't feel Didn't really like it there. That's, maybe too oversharing. They do have one of these other little rooms too. Oh, no, no, this looks like that's going straight into the home, isn't it? Never mind. But yeah, seeing this property uh doing 163,000 in the same area in top line revenue is unbelievable. Let's get back to AirDNA. What do they do? 617 average daily rate. Are they doing anything special other than the way they look? Perfect for women, families, and friends. Heated pool. Is our pool heated? I don't know. I really don't even care because it's just hot there, right? I think sometimes it does still matter. Let's go back and look at this one. Do we have a heated pool or no? I'm gonna end up breaking my computer again. Let's try not to though. Let's see. Some sites it just, the flood map always seems to kill it when I'm dragging that around, and the crime one. But AirDNA seems to be doing all right to it. So let's see. Private outdoor pool available all year, heated. Yeah, so I mean, like I was going to say that, that could be a difference. And obviously, it doesn't create that same impact, right? And it does look like maybe you've got. I'm not sure. Oh, no, 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 that's just the reflection. I was thinking this is like worn out spots in the bottom of the pool, but it's actually just the reflection of the umbrellas. So I don't know. I mean, this one doing twice as much top line revenue is pretty shocking. I wonder what the size of it is. Anyway, it's a good sign, right? It doesn't mean we're going to match this, but to have these comps in the neighborhood that are just absolutely crushing it, um, with a similar three-bedroom, two bath with a pool type property and all right here, makes me feel really good, right? That their 70,000 number, they're not. That's not a crazy projection. It seems like if they don't hit that, I'm going to feel like they did something wrong, right? I mean, it seems like they're what they always do with these is it seems like they're being conservative. I like that. This is one I'm probably going to pick up a piece of. It is moving up, 32,000. Let's refresh this and see if it's moved at all. 33. Okay, so people are buying this one, right? I think, excuse me, I think I will get a piece of it. What's the biggest downside? The year one yield. And then, yeah, I mean, I just don't know why they're marketing this for 12 guests. I just don't think you need to, right? Like, clearly from those other two comps that are just killing it and listed as 6 guests, it doesn't seem like they need to do that. Um, but I mean, obviously, the person who's currently running it is getting good reviews, as hopefully as when Mogul's management takes over. They mentioned they're using Surge, which is the same person I think who is doing their short-term rental management in the Houston market and maybe all the Texas ones actually. I'm not sure. Uh, seems to be doing a good job with those, and so I expect it is really interesting to see some of these companies that have just been able to figure out how to do short-term rental management really just almost entirely remotely. Obviously, they have to get local cleaners and work with them and train them and whatnot, but it seems like hitting that 70K number shouldn't be tough looking at those comps. Uh, and then well, okay, we saw though the housing prices went down, right? Quite a bit. Um, is that something to be concerned with, right? To hit that IRR. Um, they're expecting, what are they doing? Yeah, 3.5% appreciation annually. I think in the long run, in a market that's growing as fast as this, I think it's a perfectly reasonable assumption. Um, but what I think is great about all of their deals is the vast majority of your of your return is coming from your cash on cash return. Especially this one hits an average yield, that 14%. Yeah, that's over the whole hold period. But so you can imagine, okay, if we had to hold it longer, those future holding years, you're expecting to have higher yields like that too. Um, which sort of covers you if you just end up, okay, well, we didn't get the appreciation we wanted. We have to hold it a few more years. I'm perfectly happy to do that if I'm getting 9, 10, 12%, currently paid return. And so, I don't know. The only real hesitations I have, right, are, uh, well, I mean, it's silly, right? But the flood thing still gets me a little bit. And then, in the near term, how are short-term rentals going to do? That's why I am picking up probably a little bit more pad splits than I am short-term rentals, because I think, especially if we do have a recession, uh, pad splits should do even better, right? Because it's like the absolute cheapest housing in specific markets, right? It's like catering to a demographic that is going to probably increase in demand in a downturn. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Like I said, I'm going to buy a piece of it. I'll probably wait a little while, just like I did with the Gilmore, right? Like, I think there's no reason to jump in now because time value of money, right? Like, let me just let my money keep working for me until this is closer to selling out. Although if this sells out in 2 days and I miss it, that's not going to be the end of the world for me. But I'm going to try to catch it and make sure that doesn't happen, right? Because it is one that I think I want a piece of. Um, it's a little bit more diversification to my portfolio because I have mostly bought in the Texas and Georgia markets so far on their platform. Um, I think I just maybe I have two in Arizona now. I'll have to go back and look. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm curious, is there anything I missed? Right? I really hate it when I don't have a good complaint about a property. So let me know what you hate about this, what you think is problematic that I missed. Is there, do you not like having palm trees? Like, is that going to be a maintenance issue? I don't know anything about palm trees. We have some here in our market, and they did, we had a problem with them dying when we had that freeze several years ago. But other than that, I really don't know. Is there something that I'm overlooking? I love it when you guys share that either in the Discord or in the description of this video. Other than that, please tickle that like button, do whatever you do with the bell, and yeah, thanks for watching. Oh, until next time, I'm just gonna, I'm doing it right now. I'm gonna keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.